Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 3, Diverse Logic of Theory Building. In this unit, we will discuss why and how sociologists arrange in fairly compact theories their propositions about the social world. Before reading this unit, it would be well to appreciate that emphasis on theoretical formulations and methodological rigor in empirical research go hand in hand and do not in any way pose any problem of ascendance of one over the other. Your logic of theory building is your asset to carry out a useful empirical investigation and vice versa. A methodologically sound social research leads to growth of verifiable and valid outcomes in terms of their theoretical significance. In the light of the above clarification, it makes more sense to read out this unit, which elaborates the process of theory building, that is, deals with hypothesis, description, and experimentation. In addition, it discusses the use and scope of social theory and the issue of social scientist values affecting theory building. It also follows the pattern of informal narrative style with examples from sociological writings. Now let us move to the point concerned with theory in sociology. Theory refers to knowledge arranged so that the facts are subsumed under general principles. The difference between commonsensical knowledge and scientific knowledge is that the latter is systematized and classified, but only classification does not make any knowledge scientific. What really makes it scientific is that while commonsensical knowledge is satisfied most often with the desired effects, science looks into the causes of the phenomena. It is the task of the theory to organize such causal relationships into observable, repetitive, or classifiable regularities so that one can make general observations that encompass diverse but related phenomena and explain them by not individual and specific relationships only, but by a higher and abstracted general relationship. To look for causes underlying any observable phenomena is the first task of science, for otherwise, as often happens with respect to common sense, people expect or demand contradictory goals without realizing that they are doing so. Establishing the correct causal relationship between facts is followed by bringing together diverse facts within a single frame of causality. The process by which this is done is called theory building, for the resulting relationship is often called a theory. In other words, you can say that there are three constituents or properties of theory: namely explanation, prediction, and verification. The systematically interrelated sociological propositions, which hold in different contexts, comprise theories. You can put to test each of these propositions as to how well it conforms to data and how well in relation to each other the propositions account for the outcomes in a given setting. If such a prediction is possible, you can say that the result has been explained in terms of known propositions. While verifying the sociological propositions, one needs to look for a logical relationship as well as empirical relationship. As you can make out, explanation, predictability, and verification in sociological theory building are closely interrelated elements. We shall now discuss them in detail. Before we go on to the discussion, it may be a good idea to carry out one reflection and action exercise right in the beginning of the unit in order to fully appreciate what is meant when we suggest that to look for causes underlying any observable phenomena is the first task of a social scientist. As said earlier, we look at theory as an account of the world which goes beyond what we can see and measure. It embraces a set of interrelated definitions and relationships that organizes our concepts of and understanding of the empirical world in a systematic way. In this sense, we can agree with Waters, who says that the social theory needs to be abstract and separable from the social practices that the theory has addressed. Such a theory needs to also focus on a specific thematic argument that runs through the set of propositions, providing them coherence and force. Next, the theory has to be logically consistent and explanatory. That is, it needs to have a thesis about social phenomena to account for their form or existence. Further, the theory is to be general enough to account for all instances of the phenomena it proposes to explain. Also, the theory cannot be reduced to the explanations informants or participants themselves provide to explain their behavior. Finally, the theory needs to be substantively valid. That is, it is to be consistent with what is already known about the social world by its participants and by the social scientists, including other sociologists. This means that it should be possible to link the theory to other bodies of knowledge. The best way to test the validity or truth of a theory is to test its predictability. For example, Thorstein Veblen has collected together some properties of the elite in the society, designated by him as the theory of the leisure class. The validity of this theory lies in how often and how predictably will the persons belonging to the elite class exhibit the properties so designated. The sciences, by definition, need to be predictive on the basis of their theories. In the natural or so-called pure sciences, there is a set limit on the probable range of failure of predictability of a theory before it is rejected. In the social sciences, theories rarely have that capacity for predictability, yet some degree of ascertaining the truth of a situation has to be assigned to any statement for it to take on the mantle of a theory. After completing the section on the concern of theory in sociology, we will look at the building block or basic elements of the theory. Now let us move to the point concepts, basic elements of theory. Whenever we are talking in terms of theory, there is a necessity to use a kind of vocabulary that is often specific to a particular discipline and contains terms that we call concepts. These concepts are nothing but shorthand version of a large range of phenomena that may be brought under one heading to describe something. Concepts are basic elements of theories, and we develop them through a process of definition. Theories basically connect concepts to one another in a logical manner. Let us take, for example, the concept of culture. When a social scientist uses the term culture in any written or oral discourse, the meaning of the term is roughly comprehensible to anyone who has knowledge of this discipline. Each concept is usually accompanied by a standardized description called its definition. In the natural sciences, such definitions are very precise, but in the social sciences, they may not be so. Anyone who has struggled with the definition of culture in the first year of joining sociology will know how difficult it is to find a one-line definition of culture. Even today, most persons may not agree on any definition whatsoever, yet most social scientists would have a fairly good idea of what is meant when the term culture is used. Thus, all scientific disciplines have their own terminology of concepts, popularly known as the scientific jargon. The concepts are abstractions that are not made randomly but by a recording of structural properties rigorously selected from the visible traits exhibited by the phenomena under study. Although such selection can be made on the basis of the statistics, the ultimate construct is made intuitively or deductively. As far as possible, it is ensured that the properties selected are of universal occurrence. Let us once again take the example of the concept of culture. It is universally recognized that although the capacity for culture building may be a genetic mechanism, culture by itself is a learnt behavior, as proven by the example of children who have been deprived of being nurtured by human adults. This learnt behavior is transmitted over generations, but it is also capable of being transferred to other groups and transformed over a period of time. The traits which often go into the definition of the concept of culture have been abstracted from actual observations and recordings of human groups and their behavior. Also, it is quite likely that certain properties considered to be true at one point of time may be given up or modified when fresh evidence comes up. For example, the proposition that only humans are capable of culture is being modified by fresh research on non-human species. Propositions in all sciences are always open to scrutiny, and continued research in a scientific manner means that we keep testing earlier statements for their validity. This is why science is recognized as a never-ending process, and that is why in the social sciences few concepts achieve the status of universal and timeless truths as in mathematics. Statement of absolute validity like 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 is rarely possible in social sciences. There is always recognized a difference between the theories based on constructs and experimental laws based on facts. In this sense, the social sciences are by and large theoretical and not experimental. All the time we build theories in the social sciences, the question arises, why do we need theories? Let us try to answer this question in our next discussion. Now let us wind up the session and take rest. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with the Self-Learning podcast.